Welcome to Beneath the Wing. Just like air passing over the wing of an aircraft provides lift, the people we meet can also give us lift in life by sharing their stories of strength and success, connecting us all. Beneath the Wing explores the stories of those connected with the Minnesota Air National Guard's 133rd Airlift Wing with a little humor and learning along the way. I'm your host, Wing Command Chief Mark Legvold.
Thanks again for joining me for Beneath the Wing, where I'm joined today by Master Sergeant Christopher Opskar, or Chris, one of our maintainers on our C-130 aircraft, and notably a Princeton grad. He's got an extraordinarily diverse Air National Guard portfolio, which we'll get to after a bit. For those who regularly listen to the podcast, first off, thank you. And second of all, a quick note on one of my past guests, episode 22, which we're on 24, but episode 22's Jelani Olton had another MMA bout this past weekend and won by tap out. So congrats to Jelani. I'm still not looking to spar with you.
Congratulations.
So, yeah, no kidding. So speaking of tough guys, welcome, Chris.
Hey, thanks, Chief. Yeah. Glad to be here.
Well, I'm glad to have you, and thanks for representing Maintenance Group and coming in for an interview. Sometimes you guys are a not very talkative batch to people that are outside of your own little circle.
That's true sometimes. We're busy.
I understand. You're pretty unique in that you've been a part of 3 different wings and have been serving since 1998. And you started out in Fargo. So then you went to Duluth, then you landed at the 133rd, and a little bit of flip-flopping in and around there. So let's start at the beginning. What inspired you to join the Air National Guard?
Geez, that's a good question. Well, my dad served in the Guard for 23 years up in Fargo. He was an avionics technician on F-4s.
Another maintainer?
Another maintainer, yep. And growing up as a kid, didn't really know what that meant all too much. Grew up in Princeton, so 1 week in a month, we'd make the trip from Princeton up to Moorhead. That's where my parents are from, so both Grandma and Grandpa had houses at that time, stayed with my mom's parents, and yeah, made the 200-mile trek up to Moorhead so my dad could go to drill and disappear on a Saturday and Sunday. I'd hang out with Grandma and Grandpa, and then we would turn around and come back home on Sunday. What made me join the Guard necessarily wasn't because my dad was in the Guard, although he did make a comment later on in life. 2 years after I graduated high school in 1996, I chased the dream of playing hockey, as that's what I grew up doing, and played 2 years of that. And when that kind of ended in May of 1998, didn't really have a direction per se, if you will. And I told my dad I was going to take a year off, and he looked at me and he said, "You're not taking no year off." I don't know. He's a teacher too, so we'll maybe get into that a little bit. And he said, You can join the Guard." At that point, I wasn't really opposed to it, didn't know too much about it. So we went to the recruiter up in Fargo and, started to do the process. And at that time, they had 6 jobs open. I qualified for 3 of them. The jobs were...
You must have had really high ASVAB scores.
Well, I don't know. So, I don't know about that. But the jobs that were open that I qualified for were security police, EOD...
That's emergency ordnance disposal.
Sure, and aircraft armament.
Okay.
And I went and looked at the armament shop, not necessarily the other 2, and seemed to be like, this might be a fit for me, and ended up joining.
Was it the bombs or was it the planes you got to work close by?
As far as armament?
Yeah. What drew you to that career, I guess, is the...
Yeah, to be honest with you, I mean, EOD, dangerous, but I don't think I wanted that much danger or that much... fun, cutting a wire. As you see in the movies, maybe that's a misconceived notion, but yeah, I didn't want to cut the wrong wire. So
right.
I felt like, loading bombs and missiles and, doing that and working on F-16s were great. I love that airframe. Obviously, it's what I kind of grew up with, but yeah, it's great.
So your dad grew up working with F-4s up in North Dakota.
Yep.
Am I saying it right? North Dakota?
Oh, sure.
All right, good. And then by the time you got in and joined the Happy Hooligans up there, they had transferred over to F-15s?
F-16s.
Yep. F-16s, sorry.
Yeah, they had the oldest F-16s in the inventory. They had A models. And I think my dad was right at the tail end when they switched from F-4s to F-16s, so he didn't know much about the avionics packages on F-16s. But as a kid, if I'd ever get out to the base, I'd always see the F-4 sitting in the hangar, and every once in a while I got a chance to sit in one of them. So
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were one of those really cool planes.
Yeah, and as the weapons loaders would tell you, not fun to load bombs and missiles on just due to the severity of how low the plane was.
Oh,
so,
yeah, I'm sure. So you stayed at Fargo from 98 to 2006-ish or so, and then came down here to the 133rd.
I did. Well, yep. The reason that happened is, we lost our mission up in Fargo, so we lost our planes, and, not knowing what that might look like, and graduating from NDSU in 2004, I decided just to make the switch down to the cities, and that's when I joined the 210th.
So as a cable puller, for people that don't quite understand, the 210th, they install new communications equipment throughout the world, mostly for the Department of Defense. And that's just one of the units that we have out here with a very specialized job.
Sure, yep. Comm cable and antenna systems was the whole thing, and went back to Shepherd, and I've pretty much lived in Shepherd almost a year of my life, probably over a year. So
in Texas.
Yeah, in Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I joined the 210th in 2006, went to school, and in 2009-ish, 2010-ish, I went back up to Duluth and became a weapons guy again.
You missed the planes?
Yeah, I missed the planes.
Or did the family move up there?
No, I still live down here. I missed the planes, and it's sometimes this podcast, it's hard to say. I just don't think the job necessarily, I don't want to say suited me, because that's the wrong word, but yeah, it just, great people over the 210th, had fun. I just was looking for something else, and there, trying times in my life also. So went back up to Duluth and was up there until 2013, I think, somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm.
And then came back down here.
Joined back at the 210th for a short time, and then you landed at maintenance.
Yeah, I landed in maintenance. I landed over at fuel shop, and I was there and had orders to go to tech school, and I had a buddy, Eric Moen, who was crew chief at the time, and I was kind of looking for a full-time job in my life too, and there wasn't a lot of movement in the fuel shop, and I decided, what, maybe I should just go where their jobs were a little bit more plentiful, and decided to cancel those orders, which was not an easy thing to do. And Colonel Hawkins, who was a captain at that time, he's like, "Are you sure?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm sure. This is what I want to do."
All right.
And went to tech school for being a crew chief in 2014
at Shepherd Air Force Base in Texas again.
That's right, sir. Yep.
Well, lucky duck.
Yeah. So lots of moving around.
Chris, that's two pretty significant life changes. One in looking for full-time work with the uniform on, and two, changing career paths for, I think that's the third time in your military career, fourth now, even though you didn't quite finish the fuels training, but you switched jobs.
Sure.
You looked for the career path, and then you became a crew chief. And I'm just a guy that grew up in support group. That's kind of the maintaining and upkeep of all of the buildings and the behind the scenes mission stuff. Crew chief is kind of a special position, and it takes a special person to do that. Can you explain what being a crew chief is to somebody that doesn't quite understand how we do our mission out here?
Yeah, I think I don't want to say one of my downfalls, but I'm a doer, so I like to do my work and not really talk about my work. So when people ask you, what do you do for a living? If you watch NASCAR, and you're the crew chief. You are the guy. The pilots are the drivers. They come get in the planes, and the crew chief is the guy who's responsible for the plane and everything that goes on with it, and help managing all the specialists in the back shop. It's a job that definitely suits me, and it's one of the greatest jobs I've ever had.
Is it the ownership of the plane, or is it the doing of the work?
It's both for me. For me, it personally is. I think I go back to when I was a weapons guy, and we can go out to an F-16 and load it with live munitions. I can do all the forms, sign all that kind of stuff off. We can go to the end of the runway And I'm the last guy that touches the plane saying, yeah, pilot, you got all of your thing that you need to go do your job. And personally, it's just kind of the way I think I'm geared. So some of the other jobs that I have had in the Guard were great jobs, great people. I'm just more geared towards the maintenance side of the house.
Sure. So your name is on the side of a plane, is that right? When
Yes,
you're
it
the
is.
group chief?
It says Christopher, not Chris.
It does, huh?
Yeah.
Well,
It's
how
okay, though.
professional.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to give you a good nickname. We'll put something between that.
Yeah, sure. Got lots of them.
First off, does your plane have a personality? Or
Well,
are they all the same? They look
no,
all the same,
no, they're
right?
not all the same.
Okay.
They have their little idiosyncrasies, I guess. I'm a movie guy, and my tail's 007, so I'm a James Bond guy, so I guess we're stealthy.
Are you?
Yeah.
4 fans of freedom.
Sure.
Very stealthy.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Does your plane sound different than other ones?
You know what? That's a good question. I haven't flown on it, maybe but once.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't really matter where we're going. Sometimes you just jump on different tails. I've actually flown on Aircraft 5 quite a bit. The one that had the little runway incident.
Yeah, the gear collapsed.
Yep, the gear collapsed, and every so often,
right?
Yeah, and I wasn't here at that time, but every so often when I'm flying on that thing, there's just like for me personally, it seems like there's a drone that goes through the plane, right?
Uh-huh.
And probably has nothing to do with anything. It's just the way the plane is. But
Sure.
Yeah. So yeah, but they all have their own personalities, I guess. But I think the thing that stands out the most is they pretty much all have the same airframe hours on them. So when one breaks and has problems, there's another one to pick up the slack. And yeah.
When you become a crew chief, you spend a lot of time out on the plane. I mean, usually the plane will go into the hangar and you can fix stuff and it's indoors and it's at least heated this time of year when there's snow on the ground. It's kind of nice. But you guys spend a lot of time outside in the elements, getting that plane ready for the drivers, the pilots to come out and borrow your plane for a little while. What are the challenges? I mean, we live in Minnesota, right? You grew up in Princeton and you started your Guard in Fargo, but maintaining that plane and getting it ready for a mission out in the elements, how do you keep people that work with you motivated to do that kind of work?
I think one of the things I've kind of always been a part of, or is just work by doing, see by doing kind of a thing. So I feel like if people see me working hard, they're just going to follow suit. It is a challenge compared to what we did as a weapons guy on F-16s. Those planes were always in hangars, and it's a big task. And it was one of my, not necessarily a downfall, but something that took me a while, and I think takes everybody a while, especially our new people or whoever gets to be a crew chief on a C-130. It's a 2 or 3 year kind of learning curve of how it works. And here in Minnesota, we have 4 seasons, so every season is different. So you work on the plane for a year, but yeah, you might not have the winter but once, and you need that 2 or 3 times to become proficient. But it's just a team effort out there. It really is. We're like little ants doing our own little thing, and there's every morning, same thing. It's Groundhog Day. And getting the prop heat on, getting the planes set up so they're ready to go, getting our inspections done. So when the dash one comes and the engineers come out, we can, breeze through that, and then fly time comes when the pilots come out and crew.
And you're the one that gets to marshal that thing out of the blocks, or?
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the younger guys.
What's the funnest part of being a crew chief on a plane? Most fun.
Oh,
is funnest a word?
Funnest is the word.
Is today. Good.
No, it is in my vocabulary all the time, for sure. Not being an F-16 guys, you don't get to go anywhere with the plane. And what I've found is I've really enjoyed, being able to, fix our plane. But then, when our planes go TDY or they go over the desert, it's just sitting on it and seeing all the people on the plane who are going to do exactly what you're doing or whoever we're hauling. When I did my first jet out in Tacoma, Washington, and watched the Army guys go out the back, I went up to see that. Sometimes we can do ride-alongs, and that was just very eye-opening to me. And I don't want to say it wasn't until then that I realized, the importance that we do or what our mission carries. But when you see it in action, for me, that's kind of the learner I am. It is just gratifying. Yeah, so.
How many people are a part of that team that kind of makes that mission happen? You know, it's just you and one other person's name is on that plane, right? But
Yeah.
there's a lot of people that are working with you and around you and for you to make sure that that plane gets up. What does that team consist of?
Well, it's a good question. It's kind of I can answer that 1,000 different ways. I'll just kind of give it the best shot here. So our team, as far as the flight line's concerned, we have a DCC and an ACC, or, if you're a wage grade, it's a 12 and a 10, right? And they are the, Monday through Friday in charge of it. Then we have our traditionals that fall under that. And usually a plane has between 5 and 6, somewhere around there, 4 to 6 traditionals that we have to, on the weekends train and get ready to make sure that they can do the mission that we do out here Monday through Friday successfully, especially when we deploy. In relation to that, I mean, you talk about the team effort, all the back shops that we deal with. I mean, we got to be in great what is the word I'm looking for? Communication with them. And yeah, I think one of the things that appeals to me in maintenance is just it's team focused, it's team oriented. I played sports when I grew up, and it's a team. All hands on deck kind of a thing.
Sort of like a big family, right?
It is. It definitely is. That's another reason that I love what I do, and I will sit here and tell anybody and look them in the face and said I truly believe, for me personally, Chris Opskar, I have the best job in the world.
It's good to hear that.
Yeah.
I've asked this of a few maintainers that I've had on the podcast, and you talk about the team and how there's back shops.
Yep.
And then there's the crew chiefs.
Yep.
And then there's the people upstairs that work in the carpet area.
Sure.
Yeah, the bosses. Somebody's got to sign the paycheck, right?
Sure.
Everybody's working in that family, and we kind of develop this sense of a relationship with each other where, yeah, we fight sometimes like a family, but we also love each other like a family. Is that unique to the military? I mean, you went to college, you had some experience out in the civilian world before you got a full-time gig with the Guard. The ability to build relationships and have those relationships that are close enough to have this, there is one outcome in mind. We have to get the planes up in the air, and we'll fight with each other, but at the end of the day, that's what centers us. Is that unique to the military, and how do you build that?
Well, I did, when I graduated from NDSU in 2004, I got to go on to the civilian world and work for 5 years. I worked as an assistant property manager in commercial real estate, and that it's just they're two totally different worlds, right? So, in that world, yeah, there is a team, but everyone's kind of doing their own thing, right? Their own job. And in the Guard world, we're all usually geared towards a certain focus. Obviously, it's not for profit, so that makes it a different realm too, if you will. But yeah, I don't know.
It's hard to put a finger on, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. It is something that I look forward to, and I drive on base every day, and I give the guards my idea. It's I know that I am, I don't, sounds corny saying going to work with my family, but it just like family who are there for you if you need to leave at a moment's notice. It's kind of what we have here with the Guard. I know one thing I like about my job is I got 16, 20 other crew chiefs that are doing exactly what I'm doing. And at any time, if there is something that comes up or I have to get pulled away from a plane, they know exactly what they can do, and they can fall in right behind me or whoever and continue the mission and continue the job. And yeah.
It takes a little bit of effort to build a culture in a climate like that, but once it's there and it's clicking, that's something that's kind of special, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
Do we have okay, so you've mentioned that kind of culture and that climate that you guys have in maintenance here at the 133rd in the middle of Minnesota, but you've been a part of two other pretty big units, the Happy Hooligans up in Fargo
Yeah,
and the 148th up in Duluth. Now those are fighter wings, right?
sure.
Little fast planes.
Different mentality.
And ours are big, slow, lumbering giants that move a lot of stuff,
Yep.
a lot of soldiers, sailors, and Marines to where they need to go. What's the difference in the culture between a fighter wing and a big cargo wing?
I don't want to say that what we got here is more special. I think it just takes, we got one pilot or maybe two sitting in a plane, so it's more individual. Seems like not the right word to use. They're just different. They're just different. High speed, low drag fighter world. Great people, same camaraderie, same team effort, right?
Mhm.
Just that's a hard one for me to put my finger on, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think you kind of sum it up that super high speed. It seems like decisions get made a little bit faster without necessarily thinking about how that is going to impact the family dynamic, just because that's just the culture and the climate from what I've seen. Would you agree with that?
they all have a little bit. They all just have their. You can't make apples to apples when it's actually apples to oranges.
Sure.
They're just the pace of how they do and how they fly is totally different.
All right. Fair enough.
But for me, being a maintenance person, pretty much the same outcome. Go get planes ready so planes can fly.
Yep, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But you have a little bit of fun in the middle of it.
Oh, for sure.
What's the goofiest thing you've ever seen somebody out on the flight line do in the middle of a work day?
Oh, God.
Okay,
Well,
that is legal and won't get anybody in trouble after the podcast has been recorded.
Oh, I don't know. I wish I had something for. I mean, every blue moon, sometimes somebody will, if it's Halloween, throw on a costume and marshal at a plane looking all goofy.
I might have seen somebody dancing alongside a C-130 while marshaling it.
Yeah. So
That may have been you.
maybe.
It was.
Oh, what? Oh, is that a video?
It is.
Oh, that was probably in the desert in 2017. I might know. Yeah. Yeah, that's a great video. Haven't seen that for a long time.
Well, I do a little bit of digging to get ready for these podcasts, Chris.
That was fun though. But if you've seen that and that looked funny, I mean, that was, a moment in time where, like I said, I love what I do. So when I go to work and I work with the guys, I try to make it fun and not. What we do is very serious, but we also have to have fun. And I'm all about hard work. So let's work hard and let's have fun. And for the 23 years I've been in the military, that is kind of the mantra that we have.
For sure. So you mentioned a little bit about you tried playing hockey. You graduated from high school. You played high school hockey.
I did.
And then you went and had 2 years in the minors.
Sure.
Okay. And you had almost as many penalty minutes as you played games. But you can dig up these stats.
Sure.
We live in a state where hockey's kind of a big part of our culture and our climate. And a lot of kids play high school hockey and want to move on. What was that like when you graduated high school? Your dad's been working in the Guard his whole life, and you say, "Hey, Dad, I'm going to go play high school hockey."
Or go play junior hockey?
Or junior high. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm going to go play junior hockey, and I'm going to move, I don't know, to Sioux City.
Yeah, sure. Well, there's usually a path sometimes that is laid out for you, and, as I had an older brother that pretty much did the same thing. So... Yeah, I grew up playing hockey. It was, both my kids play hockey, and I have this conversation. We talk about hockey. Obviously, it's not the be-all, end-all for us. It's really not. But hockey was different when I played from how hockey is today. Sorry, what was your question again?
Yeah.
I got a little sidetracked.
What's that path like where you just kind of pick up and move away with this? I just want to play hockey one more year, or I really want to make it to the show.
No, for me, it necessarily wasn't the show by any means. Graduating high school, becoming a senior, wondering what is my path, right? A lot of kids who went to do what I did are looking so hockey, if you're not going to get a scholarship by being one of the top players in the state of Minnesota as a high school player, a lot of kids will go play junior A hockey and try to it's usually kind of like a 2-year thing, and maybe somebody sees you and you excel and you can secure that Division I scholarship to pay for college is what a lot of it is, and obviously you still get to continue your passion, and something I tried to do. It kind of worked out, kind of didn't work out, but an experience nonetheless. Happy I got to do it. Played hockey all over the Midwest, lots of traveling, good times.
What did that teach you about taking risks in your life?
Yeah, let's see. When I went to Sioux City, I was 18. No Google Maps, no no cell phones back in 1996. I got to go from Princeton down to Sioux City, Iowa, and find an address and go, hang on here, knock on some stranger's door and be like, "Hi, I'm Chris." And they open the door and they're like, "Oh, we're your housing parents." Okay, great.
Show up at a stranger's door and you're living there.
Yep. And usually that goes like you have one housing parent through the course of a season. I played a season in Sioux City, Iowa, and a season in Bismarck, North Dakota, and I had 4 housing families. So
wow.
There was some challenges, if you would like to call them, there that, lots of just different experiences, if you will.
Sure. You spent a lot of time on the road.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of time, I'm sure, just practicing and playing hockey with a probably pretty decent group of guys.
Yeah. You don't play junior hockey if you're not a decent hockey player. And just like the guard, kind of what I related to, we all have a different skill set.
Yeah, for sure. And we all have a different personality.
Sure.
And you mentioned hockey's different now than it was back in '96. How is it different for your kids that are playing now? Because I had kids that played hockey too.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know, this is where I'm a little bit different. Maybe I'm old school, right? But it's just hockey has become a year-round phenomenon, and it's more of a specialized thing. When I grew up, when hockey was done, I golfed a little bit, but I didn't really play any other sports. I didn't put my skates on again probably until September, and then that's what I was geared towards. So that's what I wanted to do. And as far as my kids go, that's what they do. Hockey is a high school activity that they get to do, a youth thing. But if you're not wanting to do it year round, sometimes you get left behind, and that's the part that is a struggle. And
I'm sure you're going to set your kids down and say, "You got to listen to this podcast because your dad's on it."
Yeah, right.
What is the biggest life lesson that people ought to take away from playing sports?
Just the commitment. I think the commitment is a big thing. Whether you are on the top team or whether you are on the bottom team, the commitment that you are doing that you won't realize till later, and the work ethic that you put in, if you're willing to put the work in, is going to make you smile in some form or fashion later on down the life. I wish I could remember a lot of those times. I don't, because, man, time flies when you're having fun. And, but hockey is a sport where there are late practices, and in your youth there are 6 a.m. practices. And I just hope there are life lessons that they know that, you got to be somewhere, you got to be held accountable, and, you're going to always be there on time and somebody can count on you.
Sometimes that's just the biggest piece of success, is showing up and being on time, and people will learn to count on you for that. Commitment, good strong work ethic, and getting someplace on time.
Sure.
That'll get you so much farther ahead in life than a lot of other folks.
Well,
agree?
Yeah.
Yeah.
what we do. It's what we do every day when we show up to work out here.
Absolutely, it is, and we have a lot of fun and enjoy our guard family at the same time. I've been speaking with Chris Opskar of our 133rd maintenance group, and he's going to join me again after this quick break and a word from our recruiters.
Are you struggling to stay engaged in your current AFSC? Or have you always dreamt of cross-training or retraining into a different career field? Are you active duty, thinking you need a change of pace? Many airmen forget about the ability to cross-train into a new AFSC if you have served at least 3 years. My name is Sergeant Nicole Husner. I'm a recruiter here at the Minnesota Air National Guard 133rd Airlift Wing. We publish our vacancies on our Facebook page. Please feel free to reach out to any recruiter to find our current open AFSCs as well. A couple of career fields that are great for prior service members that currently have vacancies on our air wing is a flying position, flight engineers. They typically look for people who are mechanically inclined. Additionally, the 210th Engineering Squadron, which is a geographically separated unit, is looking for cable and antenna systems apprentices. Again, my name is Sergeant Nicole Husner. I can be reached at my office number, which is 612-713-2091. Again, that number is 612-713-2091.
I've been visiting with Master Sergeant Chris Opskar from our maintenance group, a crew chief who took a little break from working out on the flight line in the cold and snowy day here in December to have a little chat with me, and thanks to recruiting for that important message. Chris, we were talking in the break here a little bit about your sense of purpose and your need to stay busy and to do, and you've moved around a lot in the Guard, and you've kind of finally found this good home, and you talked a little bit about your mentor and how he kind of saw something in you and developed that. Can you talk about how that relationship started and really molded into something that was a powerful motivator for you?
Sure. Yeah, I guess first I'll give a shout out to who that individual was. That was Master Sergeant Adrian Skadzam, who is since retired. But the thing that relationship was one that, you know, as you're a crew chief and you're doing tasks and, you know, we're reading books and technical orders and you're doing the task and then you're doing it by the book, but then you have a question and you bring him the question and he's like, all right, yeah, you're supposed to be bringing me that question because you're supposed to be wondering what that's about in that book. And that was something he was very driven and geared towards, and that's something I am too. It's one reason why we click so well. And then it was just an accountability thing. Sometimes he was like, hey man, where you been? Been like, I was over here. He's like, well, I'm over here and work started 15 minutes ago. So, you know, we got to work over here. So, and that was kind of not necessarily a hard knocks or a hard way of life on the flight line, but what we do is so hands-on and so time sensitive that, you know, you gotta pay attention to that. And for me personally, that was one of my struggles when I came to be a crew chief. As a weapons guy, I was a specialist, just like we have our specialists, fuel shop, hydro shop, all the shops there. You know, you go out in the plane, you do your specialist thing that is broke, and you go back inside. And it's not that I didn't have that mentality that, you know, I didn't want to work hard or whatever, but I was a specialist for so many years that I just didn't understand the realm of the crew chief and how the ebbs and flows of it. And he definitely helped out with that. And I owe him a lot of thanks.
Yeah. He kind of inspired, it sounds like he inspired you to follow him until you were the leader that he wanted you to be. Now you have people that follow you, right?
Sure. Yeah, they do. Yeah, we have our, you know, our troops, our traditionals that fall underneath us, and, you know, I kind of hold them accountable to the same standards that he held me accountable to.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I said, what we do, compared from an F-16, small little airframe, to a C-130, which is a school bus in the sky, there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of things that us as crew chiefs are responsible for. And all those little things have a place and make a difference in some form or fashion.
Yeah. It's not necessarily telling people that they have to do something, but inspiring them to, like your mentor did, come to me with the questions that you have, and we'll talk it over, and these are the questions you ought to be asking. Good for you for finding it. He kind of inspired you to learn more and to become more of a craftsman, didn't he?
Oh yeah, for sure. And like I said, this is a job I will never be perfect at. I will never probably know it all. I try to learn something new every day. Every cycle that the plane goes through, it's a big learning curve. That is one of the things. Like I mentioned, the 2 to 3 years to become proficient at what we do out on the flight line, and going through the seasons and going through the different inspections. And there's things that the 10 that works under me, counterbalance on the elevator, big lead weight. He's worked on 2 of them. I've never done that.
Yeah.
Just because he was doing, when we had to replace it, he was available to work on it at the time. So there's things that I haven't done that he's done. And that's what's kind of neat about our job too. So then he becomes the expert, if you will, or has some guidance. So when somebody else is doing it, or maybe me, I can go ask Todd, like, hey, can you help us out with this? And he knows exactly, the ins and outs of it. So another cool aspect of our job.
Knowing that you've been doing your job since 2015, and it is now almost 2022.
Yeah.
And at this stage, you're still learning, and you are not the full-on expert on everything with that plane. How do you get yourself to a point of being humble enough to admit, I still have things to learn? Or is that just something that is bred into everybody out here, is that that thirst for more knowledge and being okay with not knowing?
Yeah, I think that is, obviously yeah. Or how do I want to say this? You mentioned being okay with not being the expert, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, by no means do I want to be the expert. I'm a doer, as you had mentioned, and a fixer. I want to fix the problem, and I want to learn when I'm fixing it. And for me personally, when I have a situation, and I don't want a young troop to kind of go on the road or not be familiar with something, so I'm going to spread that message and that word to them. But me personally, as a weapons guy, we do our quarterly loads, and as a younger guy, we get through our loads would usually take between 40-45 minutes, and the trainer that I had, we get to the end and he'd be like, what did you miss? All right. So, and usually as I'm loading, sometimes I go back, and if I miss a step, I would correct the step. Hopefully he would see him, and I'd tell him X, Y, and Z. And he'd be like, all right. And that's how, eventually he begins to gain your trust, and you move up in your career, kind of a thing that,
yeah.
They know you get the concept of what we're doing. So kind of goes hand in hand.
Yeah. Okay, so we also talked a little bit about how your mentor inspired you, to just kind of have that thirst for knowledge, and that I've been working over here. Work started 15 minutes ago, just kind of getting him to follow. Let's talk a little bit about inspiration. And Chris, before we started talking on the podcast, we talked a little bit about your brother and your older brother. You lost him in 2005. He was in the Marines. What inspiration or lesson did he teach you? And if you don't mind unpacking that a little bit and sharing a little bit about your brother.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, let's see. Well, I mentioned I had an older brother that played hockey. When I joined the Guard, he had gone through he too had played a little hockey and played some Division III hockey up at Concordia, and had some roadblocks in his life that he was working through. And so I joined the Guard, it wasn't much longer after that. Well, I'll say one thing. I think my brother was always geared to do a certain job, because even when I was in high school, for whatever reason, there was leatherneck magazines in the bathroom, and he was definitely, I don't want to say the center of attention, but people were just naturally gravitated towards him, and he's a good leader. So, what was the question again? Just
Tell me about your brother.
Yep.
And what about your brother inspired you, or what lesson did you gain from your brother? And
Oh,
tell us a little bit about,
Yeah.
you were mentioning he played hockey.
yep.
Okay.
So yeah, so for me, I grew up watching him play hockey, oldest child. I just kind of try to follow in his footsteps and do the things that, even being 4.5 years younger than him, that he did.
Mhm.
And he, hockey's a big thing. Lead by example, right? Lead by example. Quiet talker, right? Or, soft spoken. And yeah, let me just see how I want to formulate this. So, yeah, he joined the Marines back in must have been 98, 99, somewhere around there.
Same year you joined the Guard.
Yeah, and I didn't really tell my parents. I don't think that they were too thrilled with that thing, but he knew that was something he needed to do, and that was the avenue he wanted to take. And yeah, he was good at his job.
In 2005, he was leading a team of Marines in Iraq,
Yep.
and they got hit by a improvised explosive device.
That is right.
And he was 4 years older than you. You were in the Guard and in the military at that time, and he was in the military at that time.
Yep.
Did you join the Guard? You didn't join the Guard because of your brother, correct?
Nope.
But there were aspects about your brother that seemed to inspire you, and even now, that sense of quiet purpose. But you were both two completely different people.
Oh, yeah, we were night and day.
Yeah.
If there was like I said, he kind of the center of attention, and he just naturally, people gravitated towards him, and he had a little bit of a wild side in him. Unlike me, I'm a little bit more reserved and like to crack jokes in a different way, but yeah, he was definitely high speed, low drag too, and yeah, unfortunately, that day happened, and that's a day as the as the years go on, you're like, holy moly, it's been that long. I can't even really. My kids never met him. My wife barely knew him.
Mm-hmm.
He died July 23rd, 2005.
Yeah.
It's my little Ford Focus that I drive around. I bought that July 20th, 2005.
Still drive it?
Still drive it, still running. And as I was driving in today, actually, I was like, man, it's on its way out, but it's like really holds no significance. But still, it's like when it's gone, I don't know.
Yeah.
Just going to go to the scrapyard. So
Probably. Those Ford Focus, though.
yeah, it's a great car.
They are.
Snapped a control arm the other day, so yeah.
Always got something to fix when
Always
you're
got
driving a
something
good
to
used
fix.
car.
But yeah, I mean that. The only thing I can say about my brother and the unfortunate events that I think the job that he was doing was the job for him. He loved being a Marine, and he felt no pain.
Yeah. Yeah. I read some of the things that people say about Chris Opskar, and one of the things that you value so much in where you're at is relationships and people, which for a maintainer, that's pretty darn good.
Sure.
That sense of closeness comes from, or that sense of closeness in relationship, that doesn't just show up overnight. And maybe that's one of the things that your brother gave to you, is that people have value, and they have something to teach us and hold on. Thanks for sharing that story about your brother.
Yeah.
So Second part, we like to get a little more light in the second part, and so we start off. Let's talk about your brother.
Yeah.
But one of the things is, doing quick questions. This is something you didn't get a chance to get to on the one podcast that you were listening to.
Oh,
I
boy.
know you're a huge fan of the podcast and the one half of a podcast that you've listened to so far, rave reviews, right?
Yep.
But quick questions. So there's rules to this.
Oh boy.
It's the first answer that pops into your head. You can't think about it for a really, really long time.
Okay.
I'll ask you a question. You got to answer it real quick. You ready for this?
You bet.
All right, cool. Wayne Gretzky or Connor McDavid?
Oh, McDavid.
Habs or Leafs?
Leafs.
Best boy band from the 90s?
Oh, probably. Oh, is that whatever one? Is it NSYNC? Is that what Justin Timberlake was on?
Sure. He was not in NSYNC, but that's okay. Favorite Christmas food?
Oh, favorite Christmas food. Jeez, candy for sure. If that a food is,
Sure.
I'm a candy guy.
It's one of my 5 major food groups.
Yeah.
Movie that made you cry?
Oh, probably. Oh, geez, real sad. Probably The Notebook.
Really?
Yeah,
Good for
probably.
you. Me too.
Yeah.
Hallmark Channel or Comedy Central?
I don't watch either a lot, but probably. Geez, depends what mood I'm in. Comedy Central.
I'm surprised you even thought about that for that
Well,
long.
I don't know. It depends on what mood I'm in.
This time of year, everybody loves a sappy love story around Christmas.
Yeah.
So, you share an alma mater with some pretty notorious people.
Oh,
A
okay.
lot of people have graduated from Princeton, Chris.
Oh.
Brooke Shields, Michelle Obama, Jeff Bezos,
Sure.
F. Scott Fitzgerald, John F. Kennedy, and Bob Backlund all graduated from Princeton.
New Jersey.
Oh, who do you think you have the most in common with from that list?
Oh, I was.
I'll go over it again. Listening skills. Here we go. You ready?
Yeah, that's
Brooke Shields,
Brooke Shields.
Michelle Obama,
Okay.
Jeff Bezos,
Sure.
F. Scott Fitzgerald, John F. Kennedy,
Oh.
or Bob Backlund. There's a wrong answer here, guy.
Yeah. Bob Backlund.
Why?
I don't know.
Wow, I'm surprised that you went with that. Okay, so Bob Backlund, for people that are listening to the podcast and don't have the notes that I have in front of me, graduated from Princeton, Minnesota.
Sure.
None of the other people graduated from Princeton, Minnesota.
Yep.
Okay. Bob Backlund also went to North Dakota State,
Okay.
where he wrestled.
Okay.
And Bob,
I know the name.
so far,
I'm
You're-
0 for 2. Or
you
whatever.
got it right.
Okay.
I'm impressed. Bob Backlund was a professional wrestler and was recently inducted into the Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame.
Okay.
And he held the championship for the second longest amount of time. Good for you.
I'm sure my dad knows him, or he knows my dad.
I would not be surprised.
My dad probably had him as a student.
Imagine your dad taught in Princeton.
Yes, he was an industrial arts teacher.
All right, he probably did. Troublemaking kid.
Yeah, that name is very familiar.
So you both went to NDSU. I don't know what he majored in, but
Okay.
still very impressed that you know who Bob Backlund was. I asked you, what do you have in common with him? If you were going to be a famous person, what would you be famous for doing?
Oh boy. I don't know.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry.
Movie star.
Being goofy.
Yeah, comedian.
Yeah.
I would have gone with that. That's
Yeah.
that's totally good. So we're moving into a new year. 21 has been hard.
Yeah.
20 was hard.
Yeah.
What do we have to look forward to in 2022 as we, roll into the new year?
It's a good question.
Yeah.
These last 2 years have been, like I said, time flies when you're having fun. We got back from the deployment in March of 20, and then, there was the whole shutdown and kind of stay in your house, and, you live through that, and then you kind of get back to work. And then we saw a little light, and now it kind of seems like the light's closing a little bit, depending on who you are and what you believe. But as far as 22 goes, we're going to still be here pushing our mission ahead. And hopefully we, as what I've personally seen is, it looks like they're making progress in what we're trying to battle here. And it's hard sometimes as for an individual to be like, especially when we were wearing the mask, to then take them off and go somewhere. You kind of forget what that normal was.
Yeah.
And everyone says we'd like to get back to normal, and that would be real great if we could.
What do you personally look forward to most this coming year?
I'll say this, and my wife won't believe it. It's probably finishing my house, and I've been working on that for a long time, and I'm sure my kids those guys will get a big chuckle out of that because it is a big thorn in my side. But trying to get that done, and just keep watching my kids grow up and working out here. And one thing I started doing, I started mountain biking a little bit, so hitting the trail a little bit more and trying to get some more miles.
Sounds like a great way of starting the year.
Yeah.
If you can go out in the snow a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, we do have a lot to look forward to in 2022.
Yes.
And thank you for letting me highlight a little bit about maintenance, especially a lot about you, and sharing your story and what makes another part of our wing a really, really special place, Chris.
Yeah.
And thanks for making a good family out here.
Appreciate it, Chief.
And thanks to all of you for joining me on Beneath the Wing. Make sure you listen in next time. We will hit episode 25, and we'll also hit the year 2022 on the ground and running. Take care, everybody. Happy New Year and Merry Christmas.